welcome now officially to our Pearl Diver seminars. That it's been a while since the most recent one. And today we don't have a talk as in a presentation given by one person, but more of a brainstorming session, and not particularly focused on a particular educational initiative like Buckminster College, for example, but more with the intention and ambition that we can explore something that is probably interesting and important to many people working in this quite controversial field that we'll start touching in a few moments. And to kind of like just sketch a bit the field, yes, and what is the controversy about. I believe, like, at least in my imagination, in my understanding, such territories are really more archetypal than just simply kind of belonging to a particular formal or organizational, institutional domain. And the archetype is, like the archetype, and by saying that something is archetypal, I immediately like try to suggest that it's not like about particular person X but not Y, but it's more like belonging to humanity in general. But of course, like people are different, and some people speak on behalf of different archetypes, and this is how it goes. So this archetype, like the images that come to my mind, like they are very strongly associated with magic, actually, and this, like this becoming or like going the path of becoming this, apprentice of magic, or like discovering something, like wanting something deeper and more hidden and more profound than what reality seems to be, and what people seem to be satisfied with and busy with and taking as reality face value, which this description immediately, and this like just the beginning of the controversy, because this description immediately creates this dichotomy, yes, between the normal and like what I want, and the like regular others, and what I am interested in, and what I'm seeking for. Yeah. So but I think that in terms of like like collective imagination, like literature, movies, all sorts of kind of cultural tropes, this like it's undeniably like this form, yes, this configuration of intelligence does exist in this particular shape. And then also the experience of just like like being like chronically misfit to reality, while being able, as creative and capable. So this misfit is not that like like I cannot do, actually does produce the effect of I cannot do, but like from the other side, yes, it's not that I'm not able to contribute what society wants, or what my tribe wants, or my like, kind of social environment wants, but I really like don't want to. I don't find it interesting. I find other things interesting, and so on and so on. So it seems that like some people find themselves exactly in this corner of reality, occasionally, and then they they suffer there. Or they create and they are lonely, and they like they try to find ways what to do with their lives, and when they do, it's like again, like still within the archetype, the journey seems to be that like in the second half of their life, they kind of like they understand what like that they are not for everybody, and not everybody is for them, not every like like it's okay that they don't like this, but they do this. They find their tiny, strange, very weirdo type tribe, and so on and so on. Yeah, but younger, yes, and the question that was asked for this seminar is how to speak about the educational propositions, if there can be such, and if it's allowed to be such for such people even earlier in their life. So earlier, before they kind of understand what is their taste, what is their intensity, and what is their depth of interest, and combinations and so on. It's the most classical probably archetype is this what's it called, not the swan, but the duckling, the ugly duckling situation. You just don't, you're just a bad duck, yes, like you really suck at this. and particularly you feel it like I'm interested in adolescence in this context, because this is when you like probably all adolescents are feeling like that, and when you have it stronger, it's like really like it's an extremely difficult passage to go through. So the question for the conversation that I want to invite you to is this: like I'm trying not to ask the moral question, like is it really like in our contemporary 21st century society allowable to focus educational offerings or spaces for such situations only, yes, for whatever social integration, equality. So like it will come back, I suppose, from like this question from the other side. But suppose you just want, like you just want to do that. You are a free person in a free country, or a bunch of free people, and you just want to create a learning space for people who feel like that. How do you, and that's the question, how do you speak about it? And given all the controversies that the archetype is generating instantaneously, and also consequences in psychological consequences, yes, that have to do with like creating of an identity, of self-description, of emphasizing the difference and the disconnect instead of So that's the question. How would you say, like like you have €5 million, you are starting a school. No, it's not our scenario as you hear. So and you want to build a beautiful castle where you will like you'll be giving a very, very high intensity like learning environment for people who really are wanting that, yes. And the journalist comes to you and says and asks you, who is this place for? That's the question.
Should it be a journalist?
Who would you like rather?
I don't know. God?
Okay, God comes. Fine. Okay, whoever has, like, the public opinion asks the question, like a friend.
Just listening to you in like in the few minutes that you're speaking, I had so many cries in my mind about it that I didn't expect before, because I was just having my coffee or whatever.
I'm sorry.
And first, I would like to ask, who is the misfit? Because there is like a common belief that there is a society, there is a human society, there is humanity, and there are misfits. But maybe it's the other way around. Maybe society is the misfit, and we should attend to those very few that care or feel or experience this misfitness and take care of them. Just as a beginning of a thought, because I was actually I was trying to think about, okay, who am I talking with? And the first, like, if it's an educational context, of course, it's important who you're talking to. And the first thing that comes to mind is not at least for me, not necessarily a journalist, but a parent. And also, of course, there are different kinds of parents. There is some kind of maybe a normative line of who or what is the general parent. So I don't want to be disrespectful and say that, okay, I'm speaking to a baseline parent, but parents are caring for their offspring, and of course it's almost a given that the parent is, which I don't believe it is always true, is that the parent is the one that is most engaged or most committed to the well-being of the offspring. Because there are certain imperatives or conditions on the minds of parents of what does it mean to the well-being of my offspring. And just to name one or two of them is that, okay, the well-being of my child is first that he will survive to become an adult physically, and then that he or she will be able to ensure their physical well-being, meaning like its economical well-being. And in parentheses, economical well-being is this one: when you grow up, you will be able to take care of me, your parent. Yes, it's more accentuated, I think, in Chinese culture, for example, where it's really a duty that is being indoctrinated into children from the beginning, that they have to take care of the parents, and this is very much symmetrical than the parents taking care of the children. It's like it's a contract. Yes, you were born. Yes, maybe you didn't ask for it, but you were born. We took care of you like for 20 years, and now you take care of us for the next 60 years. Something like this, yes. But it's also in the West. It's not. It's almost everywhere. So this is one thing. Yes, it's like the very material well-being, and this is, of course, translated through different filters, knowledges, beliefs, worldviews into the parents' expectation from the educational system. Is just help us to prepare our children for like the well-being, which is mostly be successful in economically, be successful socially, find a nice spouse that's or a man to bring children to the world, so we will genetically continue and stuff like this. Yes, I don't want to take all the time of this seminar just to speak it out, but you understand what I'm talking about. And then on the other end of this a question of well-being, there is also meaning. Yes, it's also past. So how to help my child to have meaning in life, to have a life which is worth living, and this is a kind of an essential aspect. But I believe that nowadays, when we speak about education, there is an extreme imbalance between these two, like to the first part and less to the second part. Meaning will come, but let's make him or her successful and functioning member of society. And society here is first family, and then wider communal circles, etc. And And I think that, at least in vision, it's not that I want to go radically to the other side, but I want to see something which is much more balanced. And for me, much more balanced is balanced towards the meaning more than like making sure that the guy, the young guy who will be successful in life will have a good job, a good opportunity for mating, making another a debt-paying citizen with a nice car and a dog and 2 cats or whatever.
Can I jump in here? So
Sorry?
I think it's interesting because I think that what you're painting is the actual inner conflict of the misfit, like as if there is an opposite between well-being and meaning. And I think if a journalist would ask me, my first response would be, we don't know yet. Like I would try to dismantle all those inherent power structures that are part of over focus on a particular, let's say, unilevel form of success. We don't know yet. And I would also prefer that the communication in and of itself would reflect and would sort of, would reflect what kind of setting and context it is. So, that it is as fresh as it can be, or as complex as it can be. So even that there will be like adolescents that will join a pilot group, and after maybe 1, 2, 4, 5, or 6 sessions, they will notice this is not the place for me to be around, and that's also okay. But then they will enjoy that, or at least have that experience, and take ownership of that experience, what in any case will contribute to their well-being. And I also imagine that like the authenticity of, let's say, the teacher has to be leading and has to be part of the story or the communication about the education, which would also reflect that there's not one narrative that we're putting out there, but there are many different stories, archetypical stories, but also like many different stories of the particular teachers, and many different ways that they can reflect their stories. And in that sense, all the more complex, and in that sense, all the more potential for those students that may resonate with 1 or 2 of those stories to find their way, their own particular meaningful way towards that particular school setting. And this to me is more like the ideal setting also, because I know that like if you want to create the structure and want to put the ideas out there, there will be practical problems, etc. But I do think that it would be very interesting to explore the option for the language to be created bottom up wise, so to speak, in action, instead of like the language being something that we put on the structure as like this is what it is, and now we have to adhere to the norm that seems to be inherent to the language that we were using. But then something dies, really. Like it's not, there's less vitality in that process.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have some kind of a coughing attack. Yes, I agree to everything that you say. When Marta was speaking about School of Magic, for me, okay, I like magic, but magic for me first is outside of the order that we understand, outside of this world. I can give a different perspective that says exactly the same, but I also want to add, even before we think about, I want to think, okay, what is the meaning of making this school special, interesting, outstanding? So it's not only about excellence. Excellence is not enough. I think that if I go back to archaic societies, tribal societies, hunter-gatherers, but not only, they have this. They used to have maybe they still have at certain places on the planet, they have this rites of passage. They take an adolescent and they send him to the jungle to hunt a lion or a wolf or meet or yes, it was more boys and less girls, but I think this is not really a big difference here. Maybe to find his or her own inner guiding spirit, animal, companion, whatever you want to call it. But all these are like mythical metaphors pointing towards an expectation or maybe a proposition which is much deeper, making say, okay, make yourself someone or somebody and then join the community, and not make yourself somebody by joining the community and becoming normal. And this is the difference, yes? First, become someone. Find the meaning that will be so independent and so autonomous that no one or nobody and no situation can touch it. And this was more, I think, more, at least to my knowledge. Yes, I don't have a lot of knowledge in anthropology, but it was mostly the way that the North American Indians were treating this rites of passage, but not only. And and I think this is really missing in the way that we approach education nowadays. So, like coming back, I will try to converge back to this question of how to speak about whether it is a journalist or a parent. I want to believe that there are parents that have been awakened or are aware, maybe out of their own experience, out of their understanding, realization, etc., that the well-being of the children is like meaning first. Meaning first, I mean, meaning it's not like the meaning of life, it's more an anchor of autonomy, of independence, of self-reliance, of creativity, which is not submitting to to mainstream ideas, worldviews, etc. What we call today being an outlier, but in my understanding, a really healthy, evolving society is a society of outliers. Maybe it's a kind of, maybe it's radical, maybe it's not even realistic, but okay, it's, you ask me how I want to speak about it, so this is how I want to speak about it. It's, it seems to me essential. And of course, it's not for everybody.
Yeah, it makes me, what you're saying also makes me wonder, like, what would be the language other than like the typical mythologies, etc., that we could use to describe this rite de passage, right? Like what, like there are different trajectories that adolescents are going through, but they have a different language that they use. What type of language do they use to describe, let's say, the disintegration that they're going through, like the becoming process that they're going through, and in what way can we describe that particular process in a way that is in some way universal, like recognizable, and yet very personal for every person that goes through that particular process. And I think we're missing those stories a little bit. They're also very loaded with stereotypes.
Yes, I think that one way of putting it, which is maybe closer to Earth, not necessarily actually closer to Earth, I think Marta and me had a conversation, like I think maybe 2 years ago, when we, even before starting to think about it, or maybe it was one of these seeds from which this idea of the Buckminster College have started, is the question, okay, in this lifetime, in our lifetime, people are going to found a colony on Mars. And given that it will be from the generation of our children, how are we going to prepare them for that? It is like outlandish, yes, in a more literal and metaphorical sense. And I think that this, again, it's a metaphor. Yes, it's maybe a modern metaphor, and it has some prospects of being. I have even a more extreme, like more science fictional kind of a scenario, not like a colony on Mars. It's almost there in some sense. And I think there are two ingredients here that are two ingredients to this kind of what are we going to teach them. First ingredient is like originating in existential philosophy, meaning, okay, we are the few and we are kind of representatives of all humanity, for good or for bad, and what we are going to do and how we are going to relate to each other and how we are going to cooperate or be in conflict, etc. This is like a microcosmos of the life of all humanity. And how do we, how am I, yes, like it's a very individual question, how am I standing there as the exemplar of being a human? This kind of more existential kind of responsibility. This is on one hand, and on the other hand, not adjacent, but in parallel to this, how do I teach someone or help someone? It's not even teaching, to exist in a continuously challenging, unknown, uncertain, complex environment where very little can be, yes, I have the technology, yes, I have the knowledge of generations of humans, I have the knowledge of civilization, but basically the situations that I'm facing are such that I can find very limited help in previous experience. I'm always like confronting something which is new, something which is disruptive, something which is challenging, in the sense that I cannot operate my habits of thinking, of behaving, of reacting in order to face such situations. And these two are the two polarities. They are not polar to each other, but these are the two like cornerstones of what I would like this school or this experiment to be. I'm not claiming that I have the full knowledge of exactly how to do it. There is a lot of stuff to be there. And when you ask me, okay, how do we speak about the school? I think the word experimental is important also in the message to the parents, because think again about this archaic society where a young child, 12 years old, is being sent to hunt and bring back a lion, while the biggest animal that he managed till then to hunt is maybe a frog or a small thing. And think about the parents. They are sending him to this jungle or to the forest without really knowing if he will be back. And this sounds like something so unthinkable in our society. And you know what? He will be back. Suppose that we know that he will be back, but the experience is such that he or she will return changed. And I will not know this person anymore as a child, as my child, but it will be something else. And this autonomy is like, it's a whole mechanism of recreation, a place of a person within a community, yes? And
this kind of like what you say now, this change, okay, no, she will come back, yes, but change, and we don't know, it goes so counter the educational paradigm that we have now. It's, you know, like competency framework. Okay, those are the skills will be measured, well, like those are the kind of, you know, assurance mechanism that those levels of competence will be reached at this levels, and this competency profile is good one to have because, you know, it's like it fits the, you know, the job market, this, and like you see, like this entire logic of the structure, like it's actually diminishing the unpredictability, the complexity, the uncertainty of the very process in which, if you are serious about empowerment of autonomy and individuation, this means by definition we don't know what will come out of that. By the very definition of what those words mean. Yes, like it's, and if you try to combine both, it's kind of well, you kind of have to, if you know, have to have them pass the exams and so on, but it's already, you know, like it's in itself philosophically self-contradictory. Yeah. That you know, like you claim, yeah, both will be super, like, you know, well, mad.
And the riddle, okay, having said that, the riddle is how to tell the journalist or the parent that this is fucking critical, essential to our future. Because this is not obvious. It is maybe even counterintuitive. And of course, I don't think that it's like, I don't think that it's like, okay, in this very, we are like just a few people here and trying to figure it out. I don't think that to radicalize the issue of education will be the best strategy for it. But we need a kind of a story or a kind of credo, I don't know what, a statement. Already we try to put it into words in our website. There are a lot of fantastic pictures there that makes it a bit less frightening or less like, you know, it's like making the unknown a candy. Yes, you take the unknown, which is basically frightening to most of the people, and you wrap it into a candy, like ice cream or whatever, a piece of chocolate, and it feels sweet, but also it looks different. Yes, so
yeah, but I think, you know, what's interesting is that there's a particular story now, culturally, societally, that, you know, we're living in a world that's increasingly complex, but at the same time it was also already complex. We are complex. We are complexity. It's just that you have to learn to look deep enough to see the complexity. And, you know, when you're in your habits, it's logical you don't see that complexity, right? It's what a habit is. But so I think a part of the story could also be, you know, to engage with public, quote unquote, and invite them to look deeper, and not solely to present it as magic, because it's also very sober in a sense. Complexity is also sober. It's just that we're just getting used to the whole complexity frame as it is. And, you know, the associations that we have with it, for example, might be like the magic, or might be like the technological aspect, which are not to be denied. But at the same time, it's also, you know, the experience of complexity can be, if you will, sober, because it's very enlightened, if you will, right? If you look deep enough, there's a lot going on. There's a lot moving. So I do think that also it's, I think that a part of the group that could, you know, benefit from this, and I know that a lot of people could benefit from it, but let's say the particular group we're talking about, a part of that group could also be invited, through their parents or not, by emphasizing that it's about a very deep research into reality, into what it means to live, if you will, but that's more like a philosophical phrase. And I think the interesting thing is that that whole research is heightened when you're adolescent. It's just not that we normally frame it as such, but the whole developmental potential is intense because it's heightened, right? Besides like seeing it as a societal or cultural increasing complexity, it could also, I can imagine also that there's a concrete language where parents, for example, are invited to look again at their process of being a parent, and what does it mean to be a parent, and what does that do to you in particular, right? Because then you give them the ownership of recognizing that complexity that we are talking about.
Yes.
And that's also like, we have to search for that, right? Because it's reciprocal. Yeah.
Am I allowed to interject as well? Because I'm not one of the three speakers. I'm just thinking that what struck me in what Weaver was saying a few minutes ago is that there's apparently a characteristic that distinguishes for whom this might be for. There are people who do not fear the unknown. There are people who are triggered or seeking the unknown, because that is where learning is, or discovery is, or curiosity is allowed to be. So there's this innate, this is what associating, just free associating comes up for me, because you made a distinct marking difference, sort of delineating. Most people don't like the unknown. So from that, I was like, oh, so this is meant for people who like the unknown, who are drawn to that. It seems like a wordable, languageable something you can say to parents or journalists or others.
Yeah, and at the same time, I think that's like, it's a very interesting thing that you mentioned, because I think that's really characteristic also of adolescents, that they actually enjoy that. Like they're also seeking that tension in one way or another. It's just that I also think that the institutions, including the parents around the child, often problematize that particular tension. And that has to be like civilized, you know?
Socialized.
Yeah. Just emphasizing a little bit by using the word civilized. But I do think, you know, so we all, like everybody around adolescents, should open their eyes again and think about what is happening in that process for the particular adolescent. And I don't think that now we have the narratives for it. No.
So if I may, I was also triggered by the saying of how shall we teach? What shall we teach? And I remember working with these adolescents back then for 9 years, part-time. I learned more from them than they from me. I learned who I was as their tutor through seeing how they were developing and discovering themselves. So for me, what I unlearned being their tutor, counselor, coach, facilitator, whatever word you want to use, is that it was not up to me to decide what needed to be taught. It was up to them, because their curiosity was telling me what the learning hunger was. And if I was able to sit with that and be with that and be attentive to that, I would try to create a context where whatever it was that made them spark, come alive again, or get underneath from the hoodie and go like, huh, what's that?
Mhm.
That would elicit the vitality, that would bring them back into, away from this society just wants me to be in this box, back into, oh, but this sparks my interest, and now I'm getting energy, now I'm curious. So our task as teachers, which we weren't, was to be attentive to that. When do the eyes open up? When does the light in the eye start to shine? When does the movement and the reaching out start?
Yes, this is my
contemplation deep inside. And to really be attentive to that, more than having a curriculum, because the curriculum was different every week. There were things that, there were themes that would pop back. There would be groups that would want maths, and there would be groups that want drama, and there would be groups that be working with creativity with Ross, I don't know, whatever. But it would be a different schedule every week. And as the group changed, because people came in and others went out, it would change again. And you'd have the seasons as well. Some seasons would invite certain crossing with little carts, with making your own, how do you say, couch behind, attaching it to the cart and crossing around in the field. And that would happen at springtime again every time.
Yes, that's it. This makes a lot of sense to me. What you're saying now, that the description that you give, because I can is in terms of how to speak about the school. Yes, I can frame it into a shorter formulation. Is that the educational event or the educational? It's a meeting point between the raw vitality that the students bring and experience, or maybe even wisdom that the more adult agents are bringing. And if these two come together in an intelligent manner, then we are like we catch the vision of education, because it's like bidirectional really. And because this vitality, and it must be vital, and the thing which is happening in many schools, in many teaching situations today, at least I read like I read somewhere, I read a certain article saying that according to some scientific research, more or less 40% of the things that are being taught in classes, the students already know. And actually, this does not prevent them from being engaged, because this engagement also means comfortability. They are not challenged. So they are engaged in something which is not really challenging. And this is, in my understanding, this is not what needs to happen. What needs to happen is it's really a counter of raw vitality. Like it can be like it can have different forms, but this meeting point of experience on one end, of knowledge, of knowing based on experiences, something which is more not something that you can find in books, because today everything is on the internet. You don't need the school in order to learn, to become a mathematician or or a lawyer or even a doctor. Yes, it's everything is on the web. And so that's this meeting point. This, I think, is the interesting description of an event that I would like to see. And maybe this is also where magic can appear out of like a very immediate and everyday situation. And we know we have all these instances when it happens.
So it sounds to me like you're talking about a liminal space.
Yeah.
There's a space in which the ritual can take place, the rite of passage. It has a time boundary, it has a place boundary. And I think yes. GDZ wants to say something. I don't know your name.
Yeah.
Well, it's a little bit from a different point of view. I can, of course, agree with or enjoy any type of description of what it is that we want students to achieve. I very often describe my PhD students as, you know, they are really good students when they have starry eyes. That doesn't mean that they always succeed, but it means that they are good researchers. So, but the question that I would like to place is, that is a personal way of talking. So you might say, is that a language? And I wonder what type of language we are looking for, because Lotte actually introduced another language, which I think personally, but that's just a point of discussion, is completely opposite what is required. It's the notion of complexity. If you are considering the possibility of teaching people to deal with complexity, I think that they actually will be turned into robots, because that's how it is. The complexity of the society, for example, is not the fact that it is complex, but the fact that the complexity is different for every single participant in society. So complexity is not a single word, and that means you cannot train for it. So my question is, do we have any idea about what type of language we are looking for, apart from what we have been doing now, which is quite all right, describing what we personally would wish? I like starry eyes, but it's not really a concept to explain to other people what I want.
No, the language of metaphors might be like in the end of the day always the the only language that makes sense. Like it's possible. I know what language I'm trying to get out of. This is what I know. Okay, and this is where those my experience about in the conversations about our project Buckminster College immediately then lands on those dualities and oppositions and those this criticism, those tensions, and so on and so on. And we had a series of kind of media coverage about the idea of the project, which of course it's always like you say something, it becomes something retelling, but the retelling is kind of polarizing. Yes, and there's a normal education, and there's a normal student, and a normal situation, and there is this, and my problem with this is that I'm not sure if the very attempt is not already inherently structured like that. Can we get out of this polarizing thing? In the perception of such a project, is it realistic? Because I want to, but I want to it's possible. Yes, that's my general question about the language. Do we have to not want something to want something else? Yes. Do we want to say for whom it is? Kind of implying for whom, does it imply for whom it is not? Yes. Is it actually for everybody? If it's for everybody, and I imagine everybody coming and then having the demands and the expectations that everybody, in general, on average in the society has, do I want to be there? So it's this everybody's school, and then you are forced to adjust your language that it will be acceptable to everybody, and so on, so on. So this ongoing craziness about this polarity and going out of it. This is my motivation with okay, let's find a way, and the kind of type of a language that I noticed is working, or maybe not even a language as a kind of vocabulary, but more of a way of interacting, is to give a description what you want to do, okay, how you see reality, how you see education, what you want to help to grow, and you use this discourse more like a magnet or repellent, you know, and it's basically like more like a pragma linguistic approach to, you know, speech acts, you know, what you do with language. Yes, you don't answer for whom, you say just what you want to do, but particularly, yes. So then immediately this creates attractions or non-attraction. But I like, honestly, the question like what kind of language is like it's an honest and like a big question. You know? So
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's also like an ethical question, because you know, if we the thing with the language is also that, because if you use a language that's on a particular meta level, it would encompass indeed from a certain perspective what is happening, what you're doing, but it would exclude also a lot of people.
Yeah.
So you know, something inside of me literally like moves like a puppy when I think about the description of starry eyes, or when I listen to Chantal talking about somebody like, you know, putting away their hoodie. I'm like, okay, oh, right, something's happening. But there's something interesting about this sort of more experiential language. And I know that it could also be fake, or it's difficult to like compare it to other institutionalized projects that are similar or less similar, or whatever, that are educational. But there's something very interesting also in the experience of, let's say, the teacher or the parent, that indeed on the contact boundary between them and the adolescent have that particular experience, like, hey, what is happening here? Some vitality. How would I describe that vitality on a very like concrete sensory level, even like on experiential level or something? I know this is this would be literally like the experience of a lot of teachers, for example, but this would not be described in any like book that is written to go get funding or something else, right? But it is the practice. So I would be very interested in that particular type of language also because it has a democratic effect in a sense.
Yeah. Yes,
even though it could be elaborate a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that in this sense, using only affirmative language is something which I believe very basic. Yes, you don't like creating these comparisons and competitions and this is this and this is that. There is a certain level where you of course, the way that even I expressed, I related, no matter how affirmative I will be, I am always relating to a certain milieu, a certain environment. And I said, okay, this is homogeneous and I want something which is heterogeneous. Yes, this is based on survival. I want meaning, I want exploration. So, but actually, the background can remain always implied but never stated as such if we use only affirmative language. And of course, when you use only affirmative language, everybody else will start to make this distinction and comparison and polarities, etc. And it's very tempting to fall into this like a debate of creating sides, but maybe the idea behind it needs to be that we don't create sides. We just use the language in such a manner that we don't create sides. And who is it for? It's for everybody. But it is your choice if you want to join or not. Yes, it's not. And of course, we will have to. The thing is that in pragmatic situations, we have like limited time, limited resources, and we have to make a certain process of selection, of fitness. But But I don't think that this needs to start from the language that we describe what we try to do, because this is really more, it's a pragmatic necessity than anything else, because for real, like, it could be for everybody.
On the other hand, you know, actually, I do have a sense that language and you know, images, narratives, and so on, they actually can do the selection in a sense of finding a good match for us. Yes, like if like you see somebody speak and you know, oh, this is my people, you know. So like it's like this is how we operate. Yes, so making the you know, the language artificially kind of, you know, rounded and all encompassing and all, like, you know, that everybody will kind of read something in it to their liking, and then having to implement a selection criteria. I actually don't like selection criteria at all, you know. I like match, yes. I like kind of alliance and but honest alliance, yes. And actually, this is something, you know, we have this postgraduate for adults, the School of Thinking. The description of this project is exactly that. Yes, it's kind of like this kind of magnet thing. Like, who likes to think? Yes, we don't say, oh, you have to be a good thinker, you have to have an IQ, whatever. It would be ridiculous. Yes, but it anyhow obviously attracts people who like those territories, yes, and are intrigued enough by that. So
the language could be purely visual, doesn't have to be text.
True, and it, like, to me personally, it feels much easier when it's visual, you know. Like, okay, like, give a few descriptions, give like a sense, a feel to it, yes, and people start imagining things. But give those, you know, like 5 bullet point description. It's this is a problem, yes. Like,
So you don't want to codify by specifying who is in and who is out. But you want to create a context where people feel attracted to what you're offering.
A question to you, I'll give this question back to you. Like, do you think the school is for everybody? And given that, you know, like, everybody in the village is 150 children, because this is the size of our village, do we make a school for everybody? Or do we make a school where, like, some people will be attracted and others will not want to come in? What's your preferred school?
I would definitely say that that everybody is welcome, but it would not be the case that everybody will experience a match. You know, everybody is welcome is a basic way of relating, which enhances the possibility that those that will come will feel enough safety to express themselves freely and will notice inside of themselves and interaction with others that this is the place that they should be. But I don't think that's even possible, like basically possible that we create a space for everybody. I think that's the whole problem with education anyway, that we have the idea that we can create a space that it is for everybody. I think that's also, in a certain sense, that's a form of violence. If you would think that something is for everybody and you're certain that it will work for everybody, it takes away the individual autonomy, if you will, or the individual differences, if you don't want to use the word autonomy.
Because this logic, like, backwards, you know, like, or like, you know, like, it looks back to the moment where people, like, where the feeling of being a misfit starts, because universalize, you know, like, situations that are shaped to fit everybody. It's less and less fits particular people, yeah, and we are back to the misfit problem. Yes.
Yes, and logically it is also self-defeating when you say, on one hand, I believe that heterogeneity is a healthier ecology for society than homogeneity. This is on one hand, and then you say it's for everybody. It's like a kind of contradiction in terms. Yes, it means that if
it doesn't have to be, because you can say that, you know, everybody and heterogeneous, like,
you can say everybody is welcome, but doesn't mean that everybody will fit.
No, I think
no.
that's the reality, right?
Yeah.
So you sort of entertain diversity within yourself to be able to, you know, and connect with diversity on the outside, so to speak. So I think this the one is all, one part of the question is almost like the emotional level or the emotional attitude, and the other part of the question is the practical unfolding, if you will. And I also think that, you know, language, I'm just imagining very different types of language that you could use to attract people. It's just, it would be way outside of the norm, because we still think maybe inside of the norm of a particular description. But, you know, body language is also a form of language, and maybe some of the, you know, adolescents that might truly develop in this particular context would first be attracted by seeing someone dance or by seeing someone move, or maybe they already are because they saw a particular webinar that we made and saw how the teachers were moving. So that, I think that also, in that sense, getting the feedback on that level would be very interesting to know what actually is that particular language that we're talking about.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what language my teachers in the secondary school were using. Obviously, they were all using daily language, but some of them used it better than others. So I would like to introduce into the discussion, and Lotte started already out by saying some people behave in a way that invites others to do the same, to dance, for example. So my teachers, well, some of them were extremely mature people in the sense, well, I can explain what I mean, but they were mature people. They could accept that children behaved in a different way. They could accept that children had their own ideas of what the school should be. They could accept that they also sometimes wanted to be like the school norms. So what I'm trying to say is that the language in itself is maybe a concept that is too technical. What you really need is a person who uses the language in a mature way.
Always true. Yes, you're right. Yes. Absolutely. If we agree, you know, on those 5 bullet points and send 100 people, you know, to deliver it to the press, it will be like 100 different deliveries. Yes, I'm sure. Yes. that's for sure. Simultaneously, you know, like I have this, but it's kind of like on the margin. I'm not even sure about this idea I have that I'm kind of partially attracted to, and the idea is that you know, there's this psychoanalytic notion that I like very much, which is called evocative object. And this is like, you know, like in the object theory on psychoanalysis, like you have like something on your mind, yes, and this is the object, and objects can be transformative or whatever, and this particular type is evocative, and it's just because you are like, you want it, but it's kind of elusive, and this makes you imagine what it is, and this makes you, it's Christopher Bollas concept, and he says it makes you elaborate your idiom, meaning like within yourself, imagine yourself, and, you know, like become something different by the means that you are imagining what this object is, but this object doesn't really tell you what it is, and it's like kind of, you know, like like kind of ungraspable in a sense. Yes, so it points back to this kind of, you know, actually not explaining too much, but more appearing. Yes, and provoking all those imaginations. And pulling out of people, you know, this need for discovery, this hunger for discovery, learning, this elaboration of the idiom, meaning individuation and so on, relative to some space that they have a sense is there for them, yes, but they have to kind of, you know, they have to make a move to try to get into that. Yes, and this is another thing. Yes, because in our marketing reality, yes, and times, everybody's welcome, everybody will get a lollipop, and everybody will like get a trial, you know, sample and everything, and then a brochure, and you know, and simultaneously, you know, I remember that there is this beautiful short story by the end of Hesse's Glass Beads game, where there is this one kind of like a shaman or something like that, and the description is given how the young boy joins to learn from him, and basically the procedure goes like that: ignore the young one for a few years, just ignore and see if he goes away. And that's the procedure. Yes, and if he doesn't, okay, he's your apprentice. Yes, but it's a few years process. And this is another, you know, approach to pedagogy marketing. Yes, I would say. Just, you know, like if we can probably, you know, like, yeah, we can afford anything yet at this stage. So.
No, but that makes me remember that in certain sense, like where we start out, like also Weaver's description, if you will, like the societal adaptation of what success is, and we had the word misfit. In a certain sense, we could look for the interpretation of success when it comes to education for what we call dropouts. And there we have a whole different, if you will, language, a whole different parameters that we use to say, oh, we are successful, at least those that I would frame as successful. But how can you frame that in such a way that, because, you know, the word in and of itself, dropout, for me, really doesn't do it. So because as if your whole identity now is, you know, characterized by the fact that you're a misfit and society doesn't work for, right? So there are many other words, phrases, or other movements, etc. we can think about that we could use for that particular state. And it's also that this is also deeply touches upon what education is. So, you know, we touched upon it already several times. But if we frame ourselves as a school like we do, we already have the problem that people associate it with a particular kind of context and a particular kind of norms.
If I may, where we worked, we deliberately did not call it a school. We called it a Center for Creative Learning, and we did call them students. Because they were students of themselves and of their surroundings, and mainly of the interaction between themselves and their surroundings. And we deliberately did not see them as a misfit. It wasn't an attribute of them. We talked about that the relationship between them and their contexts had been a misfit. So it's an attribute of the relationality and not of the person. And that's a shift away from entity thinking towards complexity thinking. And as I'm speaking, I also want to voice what I wanted to voice before, that I don't think you can have complexity without polarities. Complexity exists by the fact that you have polarities. And it's in the gap in between, in the paradox, in the tension, that creativity can come and be and evolve and create. So to try to not have polarities in itself is a paradox. Yeah, and you create one as you do it.
Yeah, the thing is, yeah, I see that. I'm not sure, because, you know, like in complexity also, like, you know, like how things exist, they like become unique, and they have their own character. Yes, and this is some kind of irreducible, like, uniqueness in complexity, that, you know, you have characters, and those discourses that are, you know, based on either this or this or either this or this, you see that those are kind of simplifications of this complexity in a sense. Yeah, that you can have like organization which is like against something, yes, or like you can have an approach or paradigm which is like clearly built on criticizing something and being this other side of something, or you can have, you know, like a something very unique as a character. And our friend who's doing some, you know, like marketing thinking for us is bringing Gunter. He's bringing this idea, you know, like the brands, the type of brands, like for example, you know, like musical brands. Yes, it's not that they are like, you can describe them as you know, like in polarities to some other so it's like, it's really like unique character, almost like a personality type of character, that this is this feel of the play. So but yeah, I don't think that it's unavoidable that when you are speaking about something, it's like clearly that something else is not being spoken about at the time. Yes, and yes, and as the stronger you are kind of identified with something else, the stronger you know, it's like, okay, it's insulting me. so you can then protest.
What also comes to mind is that polarities don't just have to exist on a single axis. You can have many continui at the same time intersecting into a unique point, which have many polarities at the same time. It could be 6, could be 6 million.
Yeah.
What I'm wondering while we are speaking, you know, a question that often pops up is the language that we are creating right now, is this the language that we need? It's like, to me, it also feels quite literal. Like, so because it's about creating a relationship, or about a way of relating. And something I noticed also is that you know, we're also in our own bubble. Also right now we're creating our own bubble around this, and I'm wondering whether or not a particular adolescent would like to enjoy this bubble or not. And how would I relate?
Well,
you know,
one of the things, of course, of being in our own bubble is that sometimes you repeat things. One of the things that strikes me, because it is extremely popular to call everything either system or complex, in my experience, what I did with my students, not only the PhDs, but all the others, I always emphasize that the world in which they live is extremely simple. It is simple to go to the government. It is simple to pay your taxes. It's simple to drive a car. It's simple to go to school. So I always try to teach them to make the things that are simple more complex, rather than the other way around. So just as an opposed position, not as discussing or debating what the other position, but just make sure that many of the things that we say, the opposite is as well useful.
I think it's very important, yes, to say that, because this formula of dealing with complexity, it might sound as, okay, we want to make it like, you know, simpler, comprehensible, kind of safer, and so on, which is exactly not the point. Yes, it's exactly not the point.
Also, complexity is somehow a meme that a lot of people with a certain level of education, they know the word and they relate to it. So it's a good starter in a mimetic sense. And there is another angle to it, is that if I imagine, like, using a language again, so the journalist or the parent, they are like avatars of what? They are avatars of a bigger body of society that we negotiate with. And this whole idea came up when you mentioned this glass bead game, and I will tell you in a minute. I will tell you how it was triggered. Society, when we will preach our vision or whatever, we'll try to describe it, etc. Society, like this abstract body, communicating or channeling through. Yes, it's like a big kind of an entity that is channeling through parents, through journalists, through people that we are talking to. You know what? You sound very interesting. If you take care of this problem of outliers and contain them, you know what? I'm willing to. I am the entity. I'm willing to give you the resources and the space to do it because it's helpful. And this is exactly what I don't want. This is the kind of negotiation or a kind of exchange that I really don't want in our language. It's like we are doing some problem solving because there are certain special children or young human beings that are making our life complex or complicated, and if you take care of this, this would be wonderful. And call it what you wish.
We will socialize them.
Yeah, and this is exactly, and why it was triggered because on the small story from the glass bead game, because I think that the strategy that you mentioned is wonderful. It's really wonderful, and it has a lot of references, like the young guy that comes to certain the kung fu school and is made to clean the yard for 7 years before anyone gives him any instructions. So it's not. But the big difference here is that the school or the teaching entity does not depend on that apprentice paying tuition.
Yeah.
They exist. They are autonomous. They are independent. And they don't need, even in thinking, in emotion, to change anything in them, like in the vision that is like enlivening and vitalizing their activities. They don't have to take into account
that this is a client.
That this is a client, and you have to be agreeable to someone, to the sensibility of someone. And this is something which is really like it's a painful point here, because I don't think that we have really a huge problem of language. We know very well, I think, to describe what we believe in. The issue starts to be complicated when we need to make it understandable, accessible, agreeable. Otherwise, it's not. This animal will not survive. This animal, I mean, the Buckminster College.
So you would say that, okay, just speak authentically what you would advise the project, like speak yourself and like.
I'm divided. I don't know. No, I think that we need to adopt a clear pragmatic understanding here. Is how to make it accessible, but without compromising the essentialities of the vision that. So
yeah. I know, and I think that what Gerard said was very interesting. You know, to go from simple to complex, and that also means that you can differentiate between. You know, we can use the language that we already have, and there's another language, and there's another language, and there's another way of relating, and another way of relating. There's just a bunch of ways of relating, because that's the complex reality. You know, so it would be interesting not to give in to an inner or an outer need to be understood. by everybody, that we feel, and all the more so when there are power structures involved, I think. But and that also demands a lot from ourselves that are directly included, I guess. But I can imagine different like interfaces, if you will, like different interfaces with all different types of languages that are popping up as we see in reality right now. And some of them will speak to that particular docent, and some of them will not. And some of them will be very insightful for parents, and some of them will be very insightful for policymakers, if that's needed.
Yes. Like kind of different angles of description.
Right.
Harry.
What Lotte was saying, it's feeling intriguing for me also. So, and yeah, last year words do not come to me as automatically anymore. So they, yeah, get it from a distance. There are no words for what you want to see. So you need different languages, several languages at the same time. And that's a bit what I saw in the art movement of Dada. They use the language as everyone uses it, but they give it a different meaning. They allow ambiguity. They even create contradictions. But that is just the whole part of it. Not being this or not being that, because if you say I am beautiful, you're also ugly. If you say you're against it, this means you are in favor of it. And so that's a way of thinking that attracts me very much, because it's constantly searching at what stage are we, but you can switch position every time during your process of coming to it. And they have beautiful images, they have movies, they have pictures, they have poems, they have even more or less serious abstracts. So I was thinking on this is not excluding something, but allowing something in, not making one whole frame, this is it, but the frame can be everything at the same time and not be everything at the same time.
So in the offering of a plethora of languages, there will be something in that plethora that is again and again the essence of what this wants to be, somewhere, somehow. And it might not be explicit, but it could probably be sensed or felt with those as they are connecting to those different languages, those different forms. So it might not even need to be explicit.
Yeah. It seems to me that those, like very authentic kind of new characters of entities, like organizations and approaches and projects, like methods even, when it's something new, it's like it goes like that, yes, that it's after a while, the kind of discourse developed of speaking about that, but a little bit from the distance, yes? It's not like itself, like speaking itself, yes? It's more people observe and they give you stories and so on, yes? So, which is, like, yeah, good luck with public communication with it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But at the same time, there's something with what we were said about the rite passage, the tribal thing, and I think it's a very interesting idea, because in some societies you can stay there for a longer time. You don't have to come back with that lion. You can also find another way out, telling a story about the lion or becoming a lion, whatever. It's that in-between space. So you're in society, but also in a timeout zone or a bubble, and you can get out of it, come out of the grotto or the special place where they take care of you when you think you're ready to come to the society and become a shaman or a leader or a hunter, whatever.
yes.
And that idea is also, but you cannot call it a shaman because it's also already labeled and
Yes.
not
Yeah.
the best situation.
Yeah. Mhm. So what is your answer? We are speaking, like, let's take this school. The journalist parent comes to you, the parent who also happens to be a journalist, and ask you, like, they kind of like to encapsulate our conversation, and they just ask you the same question. Who is it for? What do you say?
Yeah, I remain with what I said before. I think my first response would generally be, you know what? I don't know yet. I think that would definitely be my first response. Yeah, because otherwise, you know, we would create a communication that would imply the fulfillment of their safety needs instead of, you know, the developmental potential of that whole trajectory that we're offering. And I think, and I'm not sure how I would formulate that yet. I would also say something that would engage that journalist or parents to think about how they can contribute to the facilitation of the environment in which the one they are thinking about or persons are thinking about could develop in their full potential. And I would also, I think, be inclined to emphasize my personal responsibility in creating that particular environment. Yeah, I am the environment.
Yeah.
So it's also whatever I am possible to, what I can potentially sort of engage with is also a response to that question. So of course I could say I have a preference for intense and complex and driven adolescents.
Yes.
But there could be, you know, the makeup of those three characteristics could be very, there could, you know, there could be a great diversity. And I would also be very happy to engage with an adolescent that is not as intense as my preference would be. So yeah, I think that I would be inclined to give answers that would implicitly draw, you know, a picture or sketch an image or give an impression even, you know, like a visual impression of what my values would be and what kind of environment there would be.
So in your answer, you draw the entire landscape, because you don't necessarily speak about the learner, but you speak about the parents and understanding of parenting, because indeed, you know, certain agreement about understanding of what it is on behalf of the adults to bring up the young person to adulthood will be more suitable than others. Yes, and kind of like rethinking that and re-questioning that is a part of the deal. Yes, and another one, it's very important what you say. I would say like what I do. Yes, and what I like and so on, and which is extremely important to understand the space, the project. Yes, you need to understand what those people there are doing. Yes, because I like, and here is the limitation of this example with the shaman that is ignoring for 3 years. Yes, it's not what, yeah, okay, we'll be just ignoring the learner. It's not the message. Because because you know that there needs to be something this person is doing and doing so well that it's worth wanting to learn and observe for 3 years. Yes, and it's not trivial to beat the person who's worth observing for that long. Yes, so like what is your skill?
Yeah. And while you were saying that, that also resonates with, I think I would also try to be a little bit radical or subversive in a sense. So if the journalist would again question, like, could you really paint a concrete picture of the type of adolescent that has to come to your school? Okay, I would be inclined to create a picture that that maybe some listeners or readers won't expect, or what they won't value as, let's say, we haven't used the word yet, but let's say gifted. That's not the mind that, or the picture that pops up in their mind when they think about gifted, or creative, or whatever, or successful. And I would be inclined to just draw like 4 or 5 pictures of people that maybe someone, adolescent that appears to be demotivated whatsoever, it can't be the case because he or she is alive. Like I guess I would choose these kinds of examples, just to you know, within uncertainty, create the possibility that whomever would read it or listen to it would sense like, okay, but this environment is challenging me to really open up my perception, to really, you know, become, if you will, even if that were not the words that one uses. So to create a vitality in while reading or listening to it.
And this description, this demotivation, I you know, like I'm not sure if to like ever describe, you know, like for whom in that sense, but if you know, if indeed, like speaking about that, there is this, you know, like it's like very recognizable profile that in the primary school they are like this, you know, and they are like this, yes, and exactly this, those starry eyes are there, and like they want everything, yes, and by the secondary school they are like, and the fire is gone, yes, for some reason they sit, you know, back in the classroom and they try to survive, yes? And so what happened? Yes, what happened to this energy and this curiosity? Anyone else? Gerard? Yeah.
I hope it's obvious that my role is not to say what I mean, but to contribute to the discussion. In that sense, what I would like to refer to is a book by Deleuze and Guattari, What is Philosophy? They make a distinction between a philosophical concept and a scientific concept. And scientific concept is always narrowing. A philosophical concept is opening up. And so if we are talking about changes in society that we achieve by changing the teaching, I would say one of the things that I might be doing, and that I have done, in fact, in the past, of course, is help people to understand that daily life is not structured according to research, but that it has a lot of elements that are not visible in the research. So again, this is not what I mean, it's only my contribution. My contribution is make sure that people stop thinking that research is the end of all life.
But now you made me curious about what you mean.
You will have to wait for 3 years or something like this.
I got it.
To be ignored for 3 years and then it persists.
No problem, I'm patient.
I think that I would start a conversation, and the conversation starter would be that this school, the way that I conceive this school is first and foremost was the ideal school that I was dreaming to be a student in. This is what I would say. And also as an adolescent, and maybe even now. And then I would ask my interlocutor a question. Okay, what would be such a school for you? Something that just imagine how would you, after I gave this description that what it is about that I was desiring to participate in. And within this conversation, of course, there will be points that are in agreement and that are aligned and points that are not aligned. But within such a conversation, I think there is perhaps a chance to reach a mutual clarity about what it is all about, including the experimental sense of it, because children are coming to the school, they are not coming to a ready-made pedagogy, but this is something which is being worked out with them and with the parents and with whoever wishes to be engaged seriously in this. And like if it is a parent, of course they surely I would like also, like Lotte mentioned before, I would like also to engage the candidates, the young guys who are candidates to engage them in such a conversation. But even with a parent or a journalist, I think is to create this common experiential ground or understanding is the closest that can be to like, and if it doesn't fit, it also becomes clear, but not in a manner which is confrontational. Because some people will come out from a conversation like this with a clear idea of what it's about, and if they are really willing to participate in it and send the child to be there, or okay, this is not for me, or this is not for us. It sounds like too many notes, yes, like this.
Too many notes.
And it's okay. And it's also okay, but this requires like what the principle behind this is like really a personal intervention where the speaker and that which is spoken are not very much separated from each other. So it's not like posting a certain page on a website or in Facebook or wherever.
So it's intersubjective. The meaning making is done intersubjectively.
Yeah, this is. I think that this is what I would. Feel most comfortable about. Because in any other way, it's already to do with representation. I am coming to represent a vision, a project, a school, an educational paradigm, or whatever, and this is already places me in a place where I have to kind of conceptualize and distance myself from something which is more.
You wanted experiential. You wanted experiential, present to the moment, in the moment.
Yeah, I think that.
So that, in terms of, there's a scholar, Ian McGilchrist, who put out a book not so long ago. He talks about representation is a left hemisphere thing.
Yes, I happen to be in the process of reading his book.
There you go. There you go. And the presence is the embodied brain, the whole bodied part of it, the felt sense experience in the moment. Dear people, I want to thank you for having me in this conversation. I am going to step out now because I'm really tired. I had a bad night and I can feel that my body, sense, experience in this present moment wants something else. But I thank you for allowing me in out of the blue for nowhere. And
always welcome.
Best of luck with all the ideas. And I'm sure something beautiful is going to come out of this. And if anybody wants to reach me, just ask Lotte. I'm sure she'll be willing to give my contact details.
Okay, thank you.
Goodbye all. Bye-bye.
Bye. And we'll be anyhow closing very, very soon. With this experiential, like for me, this is actually the ideal. The ideal scenario would be this, yes, that I don't really know, you know, today how to get them, but that is already like, you know, very much going on. Yes, and there are like full classes and everything like has been already going on for a few years. And we just know what we are doing because we have experienced it. Yes, and it's exactly, in my imagination, this is exactly, you know, the experience is exactly the, you know, the thing that is supposed to be. And then, you know, like when we come back to the question of language and this journalist parent comes and asks you, what are you doing? Yes, how are, like, what is your work here? We actually answer, okay, like I have this, you know, like this fantasy that the answer is actually in 2 words. Yes, it can be any 2 words, but something as simple as this: we teach. Okay, and this is all in terms of the description. Yeah? That the whole experience and quality and the lived through, like, you know, in real, you know, material activity has content, and it gives the content to a very simple description, but it changes the content of this description like that. And then you say, this is a school. Oh, like people learn. And then maybe this is like a
yes, and then
fantasy, because with this language we'll not get to that, you know, like experience.
and then this imaginary journalist is asking you, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
But in my imagination, this is self-explanatory because they have just seen. Yeah. So,
Yes.
so yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. That's.
It just, you know, like the power of very simple like language, but in which the actual potential is not a good sentence, but the actual power of the concept is back in the concept. Yes.
Yeah. Yes, that. Yes, it's very clear to me. It's when your words carry substance. Yes, whatever this substance is. Yes, but.
Yeah, this is for another seminar. Today it was about languages. We'll speak about substance next time.
But I can imagine like a language like we teach, we connect, we facilitate, we breathe, we, you know, jump, we roll. I don't know, but then it becomes also a little bit poetic in that sense. Yes. I can imagine that would be a response. Just, because then and maybe even try to make it spoken word poetry, right? Like create a certain rhythm or whatever, or flow or speed or whatever. Like I can imagine that would be a response that would be interesting. Also, it could, because it also would also reflect, you know, it would, I think it would reflect what we were doing. Like, and some teachers will respond in a different way. Maybe they will start to dance. And other will start to, okay, do you want to talk about math? This is what we do. Yes. Or do you understand the math of this particular location that we are and what we're exchanging right here, right? So then the whole form would be like the content, what we spoke about. But that would, and that touches upon something that, like a question I had in my mind earlier, but also during this conversation, is like, how does this challenge us? Like this is a question that comes back again and again and again and again. Like also us, like the creators or the teachers, or it's and that's, I think, could also be a very interesting thing, experience, process to talk about and to connect about with the public.
Yeah. And this, you know, this challenge is, it is felt, yes, like, you know, like developments like that, they are so based on discourse and language and discussion, and we are sitting, you know, in front of the computers and we're discussing about it. Yes, there's a gap between this and actually doing the thing. Yes, and like bringing into real life, you know, classroom. Now we have the classrooms of 18 minutes, the experience, yes, that we are describing, we want to bring. Yes?
Well, I think that could be a very interesting topic for a seminar, like faculty members contributing and trying to, you know, not represent, but create the experience that they have as a teacher, as a faculty member.
Yes.
which is a very vulnerable but also vital experience that you can create with each other. And then imagine that new sorts of languages will be born during that process.
True. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, but in this sense, what you mentioned when Marta said, like, okay, it's like in the context of this conversation, the scene like somebody coming and so, what are you doing here? And Marta answers, we teach. This is poetry. This is poetry because here we teach is not the literal dictionary connotation of the word teaching, but it's infused with the life of something which is ongoing, which is vital, which is full of activity of life and of experience already. So it really belongs to the realm of poetry, and this is a very thin boundary between the literal and the poetic in this sense. Yes, because yeah, I can imagine. Yes, it's a work of an imagination to see it this way. Yes, and
and for that to work, for this line to deliver the meaning, I mean, this means that the whole experience is actually one-to-one that, yes, what we want, without describing it. And then, like, forget the language, we bring this meaning to normal language. Yes? But yeah, now the only missing step is to do it. Yes, but maybe next week. So
no, but it's really that. I think it's also such a becoming process of all those involved.
Yes, that's
I can imagine that communicating about that more explicitly is very interesting, and resonates on a level, with those engaging with us in some way or another. Like, okay, oh yeah, this is actually, this is a meeting, even though I'm not there.
Yeah. All right, so I think we can be wrapping up for today. Thank you.